وزارة التربية السورية. الثاني الثانوي الأدبي. مادة اللغة الإنجليزية. كتاب الأنشطة. تقدمت مبادرة ضوء بصوت المتطوعة منية مرعي. يغطي هذا التسجيل الوحدة الأولى التي هي بعنوان Festivals. الدرس الأول بعنوان Getting Together من صفحة 4 حتى صفحة 8. Unit 1 Festivals. Module 1 Getting Together. First, reading. Read the article about the Cherry Blossom Festival in Japan and answer these questions. سوف نقوم بقراءة نص والإجابة على بعض الأسئلة المتعلقة بهذا النص. النص بعنوان Cherry Blossom Time in Japan. If you go to Japan in March or April, you're almost certain to see one of the cherry blossom festivals which take place all over the country every spring. Viewing the new blossom on cherry trees has been a favorite Japanese custom since the 7th century in Christ's era. When it first started, Japanese people used to look at the blossom on the cherry trees and write poems. These days, the festival not only marks the beginning of spring, but also the start of the academic year and the financial year. On viewing days, people eat special food and drink outside. Some people take their own food, others buy food from street vendors. Parks in the Japanese capital, Tokyo, are favorite places for people to view the cherry blossom. But of course, the parks can get very busy. The historical parts of the city of Kyoto are also very popular. For people who don't like nosing crowds of people, there are also quieter places, like the mountains, where they can view the blossom. In fact, everywhere in Japan there are cherry trees, parks, castles, gardens, and even school playgrounds. The blossom of the cherry tree is Japan's national flower, and there are more than 400 types of cherry trees in the country. But these cherry trees are different from those elsewhere in the world because they don't produce fruit. Blossom means flowers on the bushes or trees. بعد الانتهاء من قراءة النص، سوف ننتقل للإجابة على بعض الأسئلة المتعلقة بهذا النص. Question A. In which season does the Cherry Blossom Festival take place? The answer is the Cherry Blossom Festival takes place in spring. Question B. When did this festival begin? The answer is it started on the 7th century CE. Question C. Which 3 events does the Cherry Blossom Festival mark? The festival marks the beginning of spring, the start of the academic year, and also the start of the financial year. Question D. Which Japanese cities are popular during the Cherry Blossom Festival? The answer is the Japanese cities that are popular during the Cherry Blossom Festivals are Tokyo and Kyoto. Question E. Where can you go to see cherry blossom if you don't like crowds of people? The answer is you can go to mountain to see cherry blossom if you don't like crowds of people. Question F. How are cherry trees in Japan different from cherry trees in other places? The answer is the cherry trees in Japan are different from those elsewhere in the world because they don't produce fruit. Section 2. Vocabulary. فقرة التدريب على المفردات. سوف يكون لدينا فيما يلي بعض الأفعال التي سنقوم بتصريفها ووضعها في الفراغ المناسب. Exercise 1. Complete these sentences with one of the multi-part verbs. Make sure you use the correct verb tense. الأفعال التي لدينا هي: أولاً go out، ثانياً go without، ثالثاً go on، رابعاً go to، خامساً go off، سادساً go up. The first sentence is: you must sleep. You look terrible. The answer is: you must go to sleep. You look terrible. Sentence 2. If the price of the petrol, again, I'll have to stop using my car. And the answer is: if the price of the petrol goes up again, I'll have to stop using my car. Sentence 3. My alarm clock at 6 o'clock every morning. The answer is: my alarm clock goes off at 6 o'clock every morning. Sentence 4. Last night, the storm for nearly 5 hours and finally stopped at dawn. The answer is: last night the storm went on for nearly 5 hours and finally stopped at dawn. Sentence 5. We couldn't see a thing when the lights. The answer is: we couldn't see a thing when the lights went out. Sentence 6. We had a very expensive holiday last year, so we. This summer. The answer is: we had a very expensive holiday last year, so we are going without this summer. السؤال الثاني في فقرة تعلم المفردات هو لاختيار الصفة الصحيحة للجملة. Exercise 2. Choose the correct adjective in these sentences. Sentence 1. I was so nervous about the exam that it was absolutely difficult or impossible for me to sleep the night before. And the answer is: I was so nervous about the exam that it was absolutely impossible for me to sleep the night before. Sentence 2. The children were very frightened or terrified during the storm. The answer is: frightened. The children were very frightened during the storm. Sentence 3. She was absolutely astonished or surprised when she found out that she'd failed her piano exam. And the answer is: astonished. She was absolutely astonished when she found out she'd failed her piano exam. Sentence 4. That meal was absolutely good or perfect. Thank you very much. The answer is: perfect. That meal was absolutely perfect. Thank you very much. Sentence F. The players felt very exhausted or tired after their 3-hour tennis match. The answer is: tired. The players felt very tired after their 3-hour tennis match. السؤال الثالث هو لوصل بعض المفردات بمعناها الصحيح والمناسب. Exercise 3. Match these words and expression with their meanings. سنقوم أولاً بقراءة المفردات ثم قراءة المعاني المقترحة وأخيراً سنقوم بالوصل ما بين كل مفردة ومعناها. الكلمات المقترحة هي A. Academic B. Custom C. Elsewhere D. Financial E. National F. Street vendor G. View. أما المعاني المقترحة فهي 1. Someone who sells something in public places. 2. Connected with a country. 3. Look at. 4. Connected with education, schools, etc. 5. Habit or tradition. 6. Connected with money, taxes, etc. 7. In other place or other places. الأجوبة هي academic means connected with education, schools, etc. B. Custom means habit or tradition. C. Elsewhere means in other place or other places. D. Financial means connected with money, taxes, etc. E. National. National means connected with a country. F. Street vendor means someone who sells something in public places. G. View means look at. ننتقل الآن إلى فقرة تعلم القواعد. Grammar section. Abilities and achievements. سنقوم بقراءة محادثة واختيار الزمن المناسب للأفعال في هذه المحادثة. Choose the correct verbs in this conversation. Speaker A. How did you learn to ride a horse? Speaker B. I can't or couldn't remember exactly, but I know that I can or could ride when I was only 6 years old. The answer is, I can't remember exactly, but I know that I could ride when I was only 6 years old. Speaker A. Have you ever had a riding accident? Speaker B. Yes, 2 years ago, I broke my leg and I can't or couldn't ride for 6 months. The answer is, I broke my leg and I couldn't ride for 6 months. Speaker A. What happened? Speaker B. I was riding in the park. My horse ran into a tree. I fell off and the horse fell on top of me and trapped my leg. I couldn't move it a little, but I could or couldn't get it free. The answer is, I could move it a little, but I couldn't get it free. Speaker A. So how did you escape? Speaker B. I shouted as loudly as I could or managed to, and eventually I could or managed to attract someone's attention. The answer is, I shouted as loudly as I could, and eventually I managed to attract someone's attention. They called the hospital and an ambulance came for me. With great difficulty, they could or managed to move the horse and pull my leg free. The answer is, they managed to move the horse and pull my leg free. It was then that I realized that I couldn't or didn't manage to walk. The answer is, it was then that I realized I couldn't walk. The paramedics had to carry me to the ambulance. في التمرين التالي سوف نقوم بملء الفراغات بالكلمات التالية. Exercise 2. Complete the two conversation below with the following verbs. Can, can't, could, couldn't, manage to. A. What shall we do today? B. We go to the beach if you like. The answer is, we can go to the beach if you like. That's a good idea. The only problem is that I swim very well. The answer is, that's a good idea. The only problem is that I can't swim very well. B. Don't worry. I help you. The answer is, I can help you. The second conversation is A. How was your holiday? B. It was great until I broke my leg, which meant I walk anywhere. The answer is, which meant I couldn't walk anywhere. A. What did you do? B. I went everywhere by taxi. So I get to all the places I planned to visit. The answer is, I managed to get to all the places I'd planned to visit. A. What about going to the music festival? B. No, I do that, of course. But with the help of my friends, I sit near the stage and enjoy the performances nonetheless. The answer is, no, I couldn't do that, of course, but with the help of my friends, I managed to sit near the stage and enjoy the performances nonetheless. ننتقل الآن إلى فقرة التدريب على الكتابة. Writing section. في البداية سوف نقوم بقراءة وصف لرحلة إلى نيبال في 5 أيام. 5 days in Nepal. As soon as I woke up, I opened my window and saw the mountains for the first time. They looked amazing. We started our trek after breakfast. Walking uphill was tiring, but downhill was worse. My legs wouldn't stop shaking. We stopped for lunch, and at 6 o'clock we reached our first night's camp. The first night I slept very well. Again, we started walking straight after breakfast, but today it was all uphill. Sometimes breathing was quite difficult. I was very glad when we reached our lodge. There were real beds. Around the lodge, a local festival was taking place. There were traditional arts and crafts on display, and beautifully dressed dancers performing to the most wonderful music. When I got up, I felt fantastic after yesterday's work. Today was a rest day, so we sat around reading and sleeping before Wednesday trek. Sadly, we left the lodge with its beds and showers. After about an hour, we were lost and asked villagers for directions. An old woman helped us by drawing a map on the ground. Eventually, we arrived at the night's camp late and absolutely exhausted. Even though my bed was uncomfortable, I was so tired that I slept really well. This morning, we left at sunrise and walked for 3 hours. After an early lunch, we continued for another 3 hours, all downhill, until we reached the place we had started from 5 days ago. It was the end of our trek. إن الغرض من قراءة هذا النص هو التركيز على الظروف الزمنية وعلى التايم expression بشكل عام. مثال: As soon as I woke up, after breakfast, at 6 o'clock, the first night, straight after breakfast, eventually, this morning, sunrise, 3 hours, after an early lunch, 5 days ago, etc. في فقرة الكتابة هناك تدريب على كتابة نص عن احتفال قمت بالمشاركة به، قد يكون حقيقيا أو خياليا. قم بالاستعانة بالتعابير التي استخرجناها من النص السابق. Exercise. Using the following steps, Write an hour-by-hour diary of a festival you went to or take part in. It can be a real or imaginary experience. Think of the following questions. Which festival do you want to talk about? What did you do there? What did you like most about the festival? Use some of the time expressions in your list and any others you need. وهنا ينتهي تسجيل الدرس الأول من الوحدة الأولى. Festivals, getting together.